Hello, my name is Bill. This is 6 Round Studio. Today we're working on the Winchester Model 54. We're going to remove the scope and replace it with a newer Leupold, and then we're also going to pull off this old dried up butt pad and install a new Pachmeyer pad there. When we get this all done, we're going to take it down to the range and we're going to see if we can't get this thing to group, the best group that we can get. So stay around as we get this all done. So I don't know the history of this rifle. I can just evaluate it based on the things that I see. This sat in the rack on the retail store for months, and either my dad or my uncle bought it in from somebody, and I told the story in an earlier video how I just looked at this thing for weeks and just decided one day that I needed to own it. So I bought it. I bought the gun. What it has a 3 to 9, I believe. Nope, 3. Holy crap! This has a 3 to 12 Bushnell on it, and you know, it's an okay scope. But when I was trying to shoot it for a group in that earlier video, I had a hard time focusing down through the thing, and no matter what I set the focus or the ranging, I couldn't get a nice clear picture at 100 yards. So initially I just wasn't going to worry about it. It's just a beautiful old rifle. But I decided that I was going to challenge myself and try to get this thing to shoot a tighter group at 100 yards, just to see what the gun is capable, actually to see what I'm capable of with this gun. So we're going to remove this scope. The scope is, like I said, it was on the gun when I bought it. It has the original, or it has Weaver bases and Weaver rings. I'm not going to mess with that. Those are just good standards to use. I don't need to put really expensive bases and rings on it. So I'm just going to use the Weaver setup that's on here. I'll pull this scope off, pull these rings off, and put the new rings on the Leupold, however you want to say it. Getting that done, I'm going to replace the pad. Now, I'm a big fan of the Pachmeyer decelerators, and generally these things are designed for shotguns, and I put them on shotguns. I've never put one on a rifle before, so this will be the first time for that. I actually like those pads. I like the quality. I like the fit, the finish, how it ends up looking when it's on the gun. This buttstock is really narrow in width and narrow from comb to toe. So it was more typical of what a finer design looked like back in the early 20th century, as opposed to these sort of big bulbous gun stocks that typically get put on modern production guns today. I've got two pads here. I've got a medium and I got a small. The medium would actually be my preference because it's brown. I ordered another one from Brownells, and Brownells only had the small in black. So I may end up being forced to use the black one, just because if I take too much material off the red one, I could get down into that support washer that takes up most of the pad, and then I'll end up with steel showing. I don't want that. So we're gonna play with that once we get that original pad off and get a chance to really see which is the best fit for the gun. If it's a black pad, I'm okay with that. It's not going to destroy my aesthetics of the rifle. All right. And then as soon as the scope is off, I need to remove the barrel and action from the gun stock, because in order for me to do the work I need to do on the butt pad, I need all of that metal out of the gun. So today what we're going to do is going to pull the scope, and we're going to pull the barrel and action out of the rifle. Let's get that done. So Weaver uses just a simple thumb screw to clamp the rings to the bases. Pretty easy to remove the scope. When you think about it, it's really pretty amazing that these thumb screws and these clamps actually hold these scopes on for years, and they just don't go anywhere. So we've got the scope off. I'm going to set the scope aside because I have no no need to use it right now. Well, look at that. That may have been some of my issue. That rear mount base is just completely loose. It just is not tight at all. That could have been some of the reason that I was having a hard time getting that rifle scope or that rifle to repeat itself when I brought it down to the range. So that is a little bit of a surprise, but it's one of the cautions. It's one of the things that need to be checked every once in a while. If you have a favorite hunting rifle and you're taking it out, you want to make sure that the screws are always tight. So what I want to do is pull this bolt out. This is pretty much a standard Mauser style bolt. Unlike the Mauser that has the side release, and Ruger also has a side release, the Winchester you have to pull the trigger back to release the bolt. All right. So we'll get the bolt out of the way. That way there's always the clear sense that the gun is not loaded. We'll roll it over. So what I want to do is remove this lower floor plate and trigger guard. Now the guide or follower in the magazine is putting pressure out onto this this floor plate. So it wants to pop out, which is okay. Okay, the last screw. Nothing dramatic should occur. We've got the floor plate and follower out. Now, this also has an additional screw up on the front of the receiver, and that screw goes into this boss, or this wider section on the barrel where the rear sight is mounted, and that screw into that boss is what holds the forearm or the front part of the gun stock to the barrel in action. So all you armchair gunsmiths out there, yes, I am using a standard screwdriver because I don't have a gunsmithing screwdriver that's narrow enough to get into that screw. Do this long enough, guys, and sometimes you just have to make do with what you've got around. You just have to be sort of careful. So talk about quality from time past. Okay, this inletting, this gun stock is so tight to the receiver. The lines are nearly line to line fits, which is marvelous. It's fantastic. But the problem is, there we go. It doesn't want to break loose. There we go. All right, we've got our gun stock off. So we're going to set the barrel in action aside. And that's also going to give me the opportunity to get down inside the barrel in action and clean it up and make it really nice and clean and pretty again. So we need to get the old pad off, and hopefully it's not all dried up. I'm going to crack and break as we go in there with the screwdriver. I have no idea where the hole in the pad is for the screw, so we're going to fish that one a little bit, I think. I am not feeling a screw at all. I'm hoping they didn't glue this. feel like a proctologist searching for something useful. Oh Lord. There is absolutely nothing happening here. Oh my God. It's time for surgery, guys. We're going to do a padectomy. Okay, there's something there. So you might be asking, why don't I put this over on the bandsaw? Well, hard metal screws are not good for bandsaw blades. There's the metal plate on the inside. Any imagining that I had that I was going to save this for posterity, so some future generation could see what kind of a pad was on here, that is now officially gone. No shit, guys. There's no screw in here at all. This thing was put on with glue. Holy crap. This is when the shark in the water music begins to play. Dum 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 dum. This is about as bullshit as you can get. So for every bit of quality that was in this rifle originally, man, whoever did this pad, oh, scary, scary stuff. Oh Lord, how am I going to get this off? All right, we decided to take a shot in the dark, and we're going to use the bandsaw and try to follow that line. There's a red spacer line in there, which I'm not entirely sure what that is, but we're going to try and bandsaw that off at that line, get as close to the stock as we can, and then we're probably going to have to either mill it or file it or do something to get this flat down to the original wood on the buttstock. So this, boys and girls, would not be my preferred method. So you can see that red spacer. It is definitely glued to this stock. So what was supposed to be an easy 5-minute change of pad, this is now going to turn into a project. So we're going to bring this over to the mill. We're going to set this up and we're going to mill this off as best as we can so that we get a nice clean surface down to wood to put that new pad on. Let's go have some fun. So I decided on a plan B. Now, rather than setting the mill up to mill this down, and if you want to see how I do that, there's 2 or 3 other videos up on the channel where I actually put this in a mill to shorten it and then to get this level. I'm going to use the platen sander or the belt sander to see if I can't just kind of inch this down, if you will, kind of worry it down, as my buddy Jeff always says, and see if I can't get this red spacer off down to the wood or close to the wood. And then I'll see if I can't use a file or some other less destructive method to get this thing flattened out. So let's give this a try. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We're going to go over to the workbench and get a big bastard file and see if we can't level this out so that it fits nice and flush with a new pad. All right, so I went and grabbed the straight edge. This is right off the sander. I wanted to see how good the sander did, and actually it does a remarkably good job. So we got a little bit of belly in on the center, but we'll get that out with that bastard file, and we'll have a nice cut when we're done. There's some interesting things here that I don't understand. All around the outside of this pad, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it now, but anyway, there's all kinds of little dots all around the outside of this pad that are actually little holes, and I'm not quite sure I understand that. There doesn't appear to be another layer, but who the hell knows? You know what? So we're going to grab that bastard file, see if we can get this thing leveled out so that pad can go on. Using a scraper, trying to pull the high spot off. So we got the pad off. We've got it smoothed or straightened so that the new pad will fit nice and flat on the buttstock. So an interesting thing that I just discovered is that this pad, this late 40s, 50s pad, is actually a Pachmayr, which is kind of interesting. It's called a white line, and it's from the Pachmayr Gunworks. Again, I didn't notice that when I was taking it off. Anyway, so we've got this thing all flattened out. It's all ready to be installed. In fact, in some of my previous videos, I've talked about how you look for evidence of changes, and this thing has had multiple pads on it because if we look at it, there's actually several holes. There's 4 holes in here. I'm not sure it'll show up on here, but there's the hole that exists, and then there's another plug that was put in. So this stock has been repadded. Obviously, we knew that because we know this came with a steel pad originally. So my job is to get this new pad installed. Now, I had to use the small pad because the dimensions of this buttstock are so tiny that I can't use the medium, so I have to use the small. And the small is black. Not my first choice, but it can always be changed in the future. So I'm going to be happy with that. It'll look just fine. Now, I have done videos in the past how to install pads. I'm not going to go through the entire explanation how to install a pad on a gun stock. At the end of this video, I will put some links to those other videos, or at least 1 or 2 of those other videos. So if you're interested, go to the end of the video. In the cards, you will see links to videos on how I do the full install. For this purpose, I'm just going to do a quick time lapse and get you to watch or see the install of this black pad on this Winchester Model 54. Let's get started. So we got the pad on, and actually that black pad really does look pretty good on this stock. That kind of gives it a dark feeling to it, which is actually a little bit nicer looking than I thought it was going to be. You know, when I was hoping originally to put on a red pad, but I like this a lot. Fits really well. So like I said earlier, if you're looking for more detailed videos on how to install butt pads, head on over to the channel. There are several videos in the catalog where I completely detail how to install a butt pad. So go ahead and over there, check those out as well. With the pad installed, the next thing we need to do is reinstall the barrel in action. So there's another interesting feature on this rifle that's not typical of a modern rifle. This Winchester 54 has 4 takedown screws. It has 2 at the trigger, has one at the recoil lug, then a fourth one up in the forearm, and it's in this boss that is actually the boss for the sight. It's an interesting configuration. Most guns today, most rifles today, usually have just 2 or 3 takedown screws. So this again is pretty unique for an early bolt action rifle. Simple install. We're just going to drop this thing into the cutouts or into the inletting. We want to be somewhat careful because we don't want to chip or damage the edge of the inletting. Take this, flip it around. So Winchester has this steel plate that goes around the trigger. And then of course we've got the trigger guard and the box mag covering. I'm going to put the small screw in the front first. I'm just going to work our way back. Now I'm not trying to snug these up at all to start with. I'm just trying to get them sort of finger tight. And of course the last one is the small one for the forearm. I don't remember the exact amount of torque on these things. I think it's something like 15 to 19 inch-pounds. Pretty light actually. Just using a calibrated eye in hand. But the key is they need to be snug enough to stay in place, but you don't want to over torque these because it does have actually has the tendency or the ability to warp the barrel in action enough to make it less than accurate. I'm sure somebody out there in the audience has an exact number. I don't for this rifle. Okay, so we're done. We got her done. Looks good. Put the bolt back in. All right, it's time to install the scope. So the fit on this rifle ought to be actually a little bit nicer, a little bit better, because the front bell on this old Bushnell, it's pretty large, and compared to the bell on the Leupold. So the bell is definitely going to clear the barrel better with this newer Leupold. So the first thing that I need to do is remove the rings from this older scope. And as I said earlier on, this is an older Weaver base, and what I like about this especially is it actually has straight slotted screws as opposed to the new star screws. So it's sort of traditional. I'm old school that way. I like the old slotted screws. You know, having run a production shop for so many years, I actually understand the production value in going to a star or a hex screws, cap screws. I understand that, but sorry guys, it's just for me that sort of cheapens the look of the gun. That sort of traditional, what it is or what it's supposed to be. Comment below if you agree with me. But then I'm not a big polymer and plastic guy. You know, I'm that traditional guy. Doesn't make me right or wrong. Just makes me a guy that likes the old wood and steel. Which is, I guess, why this channel is about that. It's about restorations. You know, bringing these old firearms back to life again and giving them another life. I like that. 2 down. This old Bushnell is probably going to be for sale down at the retail shop, so if you're interested. So let's get the bottom of the rings reattached to the bases. These old Weavers are probably some of the simplest bases or rings to use. It's pretty hard to fault them for their simplicity. If you think you might want to watch a detailed video of doing a scope setup and install, you can go back to the channel, back to the catalog. I've got a tech video that I did over there down at the retail store, talking or describing exactly how I go through this process. You're welcome to go over and check that out as well. So I don't have a lot of room to work getting the eye relief, so I'm going to check that out in a minute. I want to make sure that it mounts up fine for me, because the way the scope base is installed on the gun doesn't leave me a lot of room from edge to edge to get my eye relief. So hopefully it's going to be close enough here, or close as it needs to be. Now, I need to leave this loose enough so that I can rotate the scope in the rings so I get my reticles or my crosshairs in the correct orientation for me. One of the things that I don't particularly like about these matte finishes is the scope doesn't want to rotate as freely in the rings, because that matte finish has a little bit of friction to it. Alright, let's see what we got here. It bothers the hell out of me if they're off a little bit. I don't know how much more most shooters care about it, but I do. There we go, that looks good. Let's snug it up. We've got a scope installed. We've got a butt pad installed. We're ready to take this thing down to the range and see how tight a group we can actually get with this old Winchester Model 54 rifle. Alright, so not as tight a group as I would like to have seen. We're about an 1.5 inch, 1.75 inch group. I would like to have seen a little bit better, and there's some things that I might be able to do to improve that. That's going to be next summer. We're starting to get cold out here. It's really, we're just a couple days away from snow. So if you're not following me over on Instagram, head on over, follow my Instagram page, 6 Round Studio. Over the next few days, I'm going to do a couple follow-ups on this and explain to you what it is I think I can do to make this a little bit better. I'll explain one of the problems that I ran into one of the barriers that I ran into on adjusting this scope a little bit better. We'll talk about that, and then we'll probably make those things happen come spring. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Tell YouTube that this is a channel worth watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to grow to 5,000 by the end of the year. You can help me do that. Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.